Alright, now it's time to work on authentication. We already have a registration page, so I'm gonna open up file with routes. Here we also see the route definition for registration page. I'm going to modify it slightly. We're going to move register template into auth folder that we are about to create within pages folder. Let's add this folder and move register blade.php within this newly created folder auth. I'm gonna start adding markup into this view, but before that, let's copy markup of the section that we usually use on most pages and paste it into this view. But in here, we're going to change this title on register. Alright, next one, we're going to add a registration form down below. So let's get back to the editor. In here, I will add the following markup. We will create form element and assign wfull class in order for this form to stretch. Inside this form, let's add a couple more divs and label for the first input field. The div will be a flexible container where elements will flow vertically and the distance between children will be 4 units. Down here, there will be an input field to enter name. And I'm going to make the label text bolder and bind this label to the input field by using form element that will have to contain the same value as ID attribute on the input field itself. And this way, when clicking on label, our input field will automatically get focus. Let's get to styling this input field. I will round corners of this field. The color of the border will be gray with a shade of 300. When focusing this input field, the border color will become violet with a shade of 300. And we'll also use outline for this field. The color of this outline will be violet with a shade of 200. But this outline will only be visible when we are gonna focus input field, which is why we have used focus prefix for both of these classes. The next class will be ring opacity 50, which will make this outline semi-transparent. And then I will also assign hfull class to apply height 100% for this input field. In the browser we're seeing the result, but I'm going to move this input field right in the center of the page. So first of all, let's make this div flexible container where elements will flow vertically and the distance between all children will be 1 unit. And to make it stretch, I will assign class grow. But this is too wide, and in order to restrict the width of this form, I will apply max WLG class to the container element right here, which will restrict max width of the form. We can even slightly simplify this markup a bit by combining form element and the first div within this form by simply moving all the classes from the div and applying them on this form element, and then this div can be removed. Now we'll have to duplicate this field couple more times. The next field will be used to input an email. Let's update all necessary attributes accordingly. We're gonna use email value for attribute, type, as well as ID. Next one, I will paste this field one more time to create another field to input password. In this case, we are using password value for the following attributes, including type of this field. And eventually, we're gonna need to add one more field, which will be used to confirm password. Let's update text in this label on confirm password, and the identifier of this field will be password confirmation. And great, the registration form is almost done. We'll just have to add a couple of buttons at the bottom. So I will add another div element within which I will put link as well as button. The link will lead to the login page. The text will say already registered and button will say register. And just to grab the address of the login page, I'm gonna use route helper and specify name of the login page. This way we're gonna get URL address of this page. And now let's position those children elements within this container on the same line. And to do this, I'm gonna use flex class to turn this div into flexible container and position elements in a center by using item center class. And the minimum distance between those children will be 2 units. And those children elements will be positioned as far as possible from each other. And before applying the rest of classes, let's just make sure that already registered link works and redirects us to the login page. As you can see, it is working. Let's get back to the editor and continue applying other classes to style those elements, so the link will also be flexible container with the content centered. To avoid line breaks, I'm gonna use whitespace no wrap class. We're gonna round corners of this link and make text bolder. Horizontal paddings will be 4 units and vertical ones will be 2 units. The background color of this link will be gray with a shade of 100, and when hovering over this button, color will become gray with a shade of 200. And here is the result that we got after applying all those classes. Now as for this register button, I'm also going to apply flex class to center the content. We'll also avoid line breaks in this button. The cursor will become pointer when hovering over this button. We'll also round corners, make text semi-bold. Horizontal paddings will be 4 units, vertical ones will be 2 units, just like for the link. Let's not forget an assigned background color. We'll make it violet with a shade of 500. Text color will be white. And when hovering over this button, background color will become violet with a shade of 600. And that's about it. We have created our registration form. At the end, we can also remove wfull class that I have previously applied to this form element. In this case, it will not make a difference, so I'm gonna remove this class. Link to the source code of this project will be in the video description. And now I suggest to implement registration and authentication. To do so, we're going to use official Laravel package called Laravel Fortify, which basically provides all necessary routes that are going to handle requests to authenticate and register users. And all we'll have to do is to create corresponding blade templates that are going to show forms for registration and authentication. And besides those 2 requests, we're also going to implement functionality to reset passwords as well as email verification after registration. So let's get to it. To install Laravel Fortify, I'm going to run the following composer command. Let's copy it and paste it in a terminal. Right after this package will be installed, we'll have to publish a couple of files in our project by running the following artisan command, which was added by the Laravel Fortify package. So this command is going to publish several files in our project, such as list of actions that are going to handle certain requests, Fortify service provider with a few configurations. Also, configuration file fortify.php has been added into config folder, and one migration has been added into migrations folder. So if we'll open up actions folder in here, we're going to see several PHP classes, and each of those classes handles particular request. And as for the new migration, in here we can see that this migration adds a couple of new columns into users table that are related to two-factor authentication. But we are not going to implement two-factor authentication, and there is also this fortify.php configuration file that we will use to override a couple of settings in here, as we're gonna work on registration and authentication functionality. Alright, now that we are done with preparation, let's open up register.blade.php, the template that contains registration form, and I'm going to temporarily change type of an email field on basically text, in order for the browser to allow us to send this field empty. Now let's add action attribute to this form and specify proper path that is going to handle this form. I will use route with a name register, and by the way, this route is already provided by the Laravel Fortify package, so that we don't have to define it ourselves. And of course, this form has to be sent by using post method. As was mentioned before, Laravel Fortify provides several rows for us, including that road that has to show registration form. So that road that we have defined ourselves with the name register, we no longer need it. We can basically remove it from here. But now, in order for Laravel Fortify to know which blade template contains our registration form, we'll have to add one instruction into Fortify Service Provider class. Right here, I'm going to paste the following chunk of code, which calls registerView method on the Fortify class. And this method takes callback, where we need to return the view that contains registration form. And this way we're letting Fortify know which blade template to return once register request comes into our application. And just because Fortify package has added one migration, we're going to run php artisan migrate command to make sure that this migration has been run. And if we're going to open up users table in here, we will see a couple of new columns related to two-factor authentication. And now let's get back to the browser and try to submit this register form and see what happens. As you can see, we got the following error, and that is because all post requests in Laravel are automatically protected from CSRF attacks. And that means that we'll need to include special hidden field into our form that is going to contain CSRF token, which we can do by using CSRF directive. So I'm gonna add this directive in here. And what this will do is it will add the following input field with corresponding CSRF token, so that next time when we're gonna send this form, we will not see that previous error anymore. And before going further, let's open up terminal and run php artisan road list. This command is going to list all available roads in the application, including those added by Laravel Fortify package. And if we'll filter those rows by register name, we'll see only those rows related to registration. First road is responsible for returning view with registration form, and the second one is responsible for handling registration request after we'll submit registration form. And we can even see what logic is going to be executed once we'll submit registration form. And the action that is responsible for handling this request is called create new user, that we have previously published by running Fortify install command. In here we can see what validation is taking place, and if this validation is successful, we're going to call method create on the user model, and this will add new record into users table. And of course, all those validation errors have to be shown in the interface, so I'm going to switch over to register.blade.php and add all necessary code to show those validation errors. We'll firstly have to assign name for each input field, just to make values from those inputs available on the backend. The first field is going to be called name. I will also add value attribute, and here I will call old function passing field name. And what this will do is it's going to prefill this field with previously entered text in case validation fails, and will be redirected to the same page with registration form. And in here, let's use directive error and pass field name, so that when name field is not going to pass validation, we will show this little block with validation message. This text will be red, and let's decrease the size of this text as well. Within this error block, we have a special variable with a name message available to us, which contains validation error that we are showing in here. And the same thing we'll have to do with other fields. I'm going to copy this error block, paste it under the second email field. Here let's change field name, and also we'll need to assign proper name right here and prefill this field with previously entered text. The third field is called password. We're adding validation error here as well. Add name attribute, but without adding value field, since password fields are not usually prefilled due to security concerns. And finally, last field is called password confirmation. I'll replace this text and add name attribute with password confirmation value. and the submit button at the bottom has to be of type submit, so I will add type attribute right here. Let's go back to the browser and try to submit this form with all fields empty, and as you can see, validation has failed and we have shown all those validation errors under corresponding fields. Actually, last field doesn't contain any validation errors. That is because all validation errors related to the last field will be shown under the third field, which is password, so we can remove that error directive from the fourth field. But I would also like for those fields that have not passed validation, change border color and use red. So if validation is not going to contain any errors, we're gonna use border gray 300 class to make border gray. Otherwise, we're gonna use border red 500 to make border red with a shade of 500. And let's do so for all other fields. I'm going to use the same conditional by using error directive and use either red or gray border color based on the state of the validation of this field. The same thing will add for the first name field. So now if I'm gonna input value into the first field and send this form, as you can see, validation errors disappears from the first field, but the border color is still red. Actually, I forget to update field names in these directives, so right here we'll need to use name, and for the second field we'll need to use email string, because we have to check validation state of the corresponding field. Alright, now let's submit this form once again. The border has become gray when there is no validation error. Now let's populate the second field, which is an email. The error message disappears. Let's move on to the third and fourth fields that are supposed to contain the same password, but I'm going to input different values, and we're seeing corresponding validation error that password and password confirmation do not match. And by the way, password by default should contain no less than 8 characters. This time I'm going to input same values into both of those fields and submit the form, and there we go. Even though we got the error, but we have been redirected to the home page. And of course we have not defined this home road yet, that is why we're getting 404 error. But if we will take a look inside users table, sure enough we're going to see new record in here. That means that the user has been registered successfully. So that validation logic that we have inside of create new user class has passed, and we have executed the following instruction and added new user record into users table. The link to the source code will be in the video description. At the moment registration works fine, but we're going to improve it. So first of all, I prefer after successful registration redirect the user to the particular page, let's say profile page. But before that, let's just remove previously registered user from the users table, switch over to the editor, open up file with roads, and right here let's create new road that is going to lead to the profile page. Let's specify proper template for it, which doesn't exist yet, but soon we're going to create it. And also for this road I'm going to apply so-called middleware with the name auth. And the concept of middleware is some kind of a technique which allows us to specify arbitrary logic that has to be executed before the request hits particular road. So we can put additional constraints and checks in the middleware, but for now we're going to use already created middleware auth, which is provided by Laravel by default, and this will basically ensure that this road will only be accessible to authenticated users, otherwise will be redirected to a different page when trying to access this road while not being authenticated. Alright, let's also specify the path of that road that we need to be redirected after successful registration, and we can do so inside fortify.php configuration file, and the key responsible for specifying the path to be redirected to after successful registration is called home. So right here I'm going to specify address of the profile page. Next one, we have to create the view responsible for showing profile page. I'm going to create the file with the name profile.blade.php, and as we usually do, let's take the layout for this page from another template, paste it into a profile template, and close all the text, and rename heading for this page. We'll say profile. And just to make sure what is going to happen after successful registration in this case, I'm going to quickly fill in this registration form, submit it, and there we go. We have just been redirected to the profile page after successful registration. And that is exactly the behavior that we were expecting. Now I'm gonna open up Developer Tools, open up Application section where we can see all the cookies that have been set by our application. And one of those cookies is called watch_session. This is so-called session cookie that stores session identifier of the authenticated user. And of course, if I'm gonna remove this cookie and then refresh profile page, sure enough, we will be redirected to the login screen because we are no longer registered, since we have previously removed session cookie. As you remember, we have also previously applied middleware with the name auth to the profile page, which ensures if the user is not authenticated, he will be redirected back to the login page. As a next step, I also prefer to change menu items for authenticated users, and instead of showing login and register menu items, we'll show profile link instead. So I'll switch over to the template which is responsible for rendering menu items in a header. Right here, as you can see, we are fetching all menu items from configuration file watch.php. Under now items key, here we have a list of all menu items, and to this list I'm going to add one more item, which will be responsible for the profile page. Back to navigation template, and right here we have this callback, which is basically used to reject some of the routes which should not be shown in the navigation. I'm going to expand this logic, since we're gonna have to properly handle profile now item. Let's save all the route names that should not be shown in the navigation into rejected route names variable. And then based on the fact if the user is authenticated or not, we're going to do different things. And if the user is authenticated, that we can check by calling check method on the object returned by the auth global helper. In this case, we're also going to filter out routes with names register and login, and that is why we're adding those route names into this array. Otherwise, if the current user is not authenticated, then we'll have to filter out another route called profile, since in order to see profile page, user has to authenticate first. And down here we're using for each directive to render all those menu items. Let's go back to the browser, but before that let's also remove registered user from the database and create new one by registering. And so since we're not authenticated yet, we're seeing login and register menu items in the navigation, but the moment I'm going to create new user and register, we'll be redirected to the profile page, and at the same time we're seeing profile menu item in the navigation. Actually, this profile menu item is also shown in the footer navigation, which I prefer to hide it from here, so let's switch over to the template responsible for rendering footer navigation, and right here I will add one more entry called profile to this list of route names that we have to filter out. So now, as you can see, profile menu item is disappeared from the footer navigation. And now I'm going to remove session cookie, and we already know what is going to happen after I refresh the page while being on the profile page. We'll be redirected to the login screen, since we are no longer authenticated, and auth middleware that we have previously applied to the profile route has redirected us to login screen. And lastly, in this lesson I'm going to make another enhancement, and that is we're going to focus on the first input field on the register page. And to make it work, all we have to do is to basically add attribute with the name autofocus on this input field. And now let's try it out. I'm gonna switch over to register page, and sure enough, the first input field will receive focus. The link to the source code will be in the video description. Now that we have working registration, it's time to create authentication form. And Laravel Fortify already registers road with name of login, so we don't have to declare this road in our file with roads. So I'm gonna switch back to the editor, open up file with roads, and remove previously declared road with the name of login, since Laravel Fortify already registers such road. But if we're going to refresh the page in the browser this time, we're seeing such error. That is because we still have to tell Laravel Fortify which blade template to load when user accesses login page. And we can do so inside Fortify Service Provider class, just like we did for registration form. So I'm gonna copy this chunk of code, paste it down here. This time we need to call login view method and specify which blade template to load when user will open up login page. In our case, login page will be contained within auth folder. For now it's not, so I'm going to move this blade template with the name of login into auth folder. And after doing so, the error in the browser will be fixed. Now I'm going to copy over the whole markup of registration form and paste it into login template. Styles of login form will be the same as registration form, so I'm going to just modify a couple of things in this form. First of all, let's change the action attribute. We need to specify proper path that is going to handle this login form. And we have the road with name of login that will be used to handle this form. And now I'm going to remove some extra fields in this form, such as name and password confirmation, since we're going to only keep email and password fields. And instead of having this already registered link in login form, we're going to replace it with another link that will lead to register page. And the link will say don't have an account, so the user can easily navigate to register page if he doesn't have an account yet. Also, let's replace a register label with login and change heading of this page on login. Alright, cool, and this is our login form. Let's check if validation works. After we'll submit this form, we are seeing validation errors. And also let's click on this link and make sure that we will be redirected to registration page. I already have one registered user in the users table, so I can use login credentials of this user. Let's try it out and submit this form. And it worked. We are being redirected to profile page. As you may remember, if we will remove session cookie with the name of watch_session and refresh the page, we are expecting to be redirected back to login page. And sure enough, if I'm going to enter invalid credentials, we're going to see the following error. So now we're going to add one more element to this form, which will be remember me checkbox. Let's go back to the editor and create new block for this checkbox. It will be a flexible container where the distance between checkbox and its label will be 3 units. Elements will be vertically aligned, and I'm gonna add input with a type of checkbox. The name will have to be remember, and the value will be 1. I'm also going to assign identifier to this checkbox to be able to bind it to its label so that when we will click on the label, the checkbox will be toggled. Down here I'm gonna add this label. I will make this label a bit bolder and assign for attribute that is supposed to have the same value as identifier of the checkbox to bind it to this checkbox. And as we usually do, in order to preserve user choice, after page will be refreshed, if the user has previously toggled this checkbox, we need to keep it checked. So I'm gonna check if variable with the name of remember exists, meaning that if user has previously checked the checkbox, we're going to add checked attribute that is going to make this checkbox be checked. Otherwise, we're not going to add anything. Alright, we're seeing this checkbox. Now let's get to styling. I'm going to make the size of this checkbox 5 units, round corners a bit. The color of the border will be gray with a shade of 300. the color of the checkbox itself will be violet with a shade of 600. Then for focus state, we'll change border color on violet with a shade of 300. Also we'll add outline by using a ring class. The color of this outline will be violet with a shade of 200. This outline will be semi-transparent, and the distance between the outline and the checkbox itself will be 0, meaning that there will be no offset. And here is how our checkbox looks like. And if you'll take a look at the users table, here you will find a column with the name of remember token. And this column will be filled with a random token if user is going to authenticate with remember checkbox checked. So now I'm going to authenticate the user with this checkbox checked. In the database, we will see that remember token column will be filled. And the purpose of this checkbox is to remember users until they manually log out. And also it will be good to put focus in the first field of this form once user opens up login page. I'm going to add autofocus attribute to this email field. And also let's change the type of this field on email. And for the password field, I'm going to add required attribute for browser validation. And while we are at it, let's switch over to registration form, and in here I will also change type of the email field on email. And by the way, if we are authenticated with remember checkbox checked, we will notice that besides watch session cookie, there is another cookie with the name of remember. And if we'll remove session cookie and refresh the page, in this case, we are staying logged in and watch session cookie has come back. But if I'm gonna remove both of these cookies, remember and watch session, this time, after we'll refresh the page, we'll be redirected to login page, since we are no longer authenticated. And as you can see, the first field of the login form receives focus. And also let's check that the browser validation will kick in if we'll leave password field blank. And if we'll input invalid email, browser validation works. The link to the source code of this project will be in the video description. Moving on, at the moment we can log in, but we cannot log out. So as a next step, I suggest that we will add another link to the navigation, which will be used for logging out. Just to remind you, we are rendering all navigation items within index.blade.php component that is located inside of now folder. And as you can see in here, we are fetching all navigation items that have to be rendered from the configuration option under key now items. Let's open up watch.php configuration file, and here we can see all navigation items. And to this list I'm going to add another entry for logout link. So now within this callback, when we are deciding which navigation items we have to hide in case user is authenticated, we're also going to exclude another entry in case user is not currently authenticated, because there is no point to show logout link if user is not yet authenticated. And there we go, now in the browser we're seeing that logout link is shown since I'm currently authenticated. But we are also seeing this link within footer navigation, which I prefer to hide it from here. So let's open up now.blade.php component inside of footer folder, and right here let's add another entry, logout, to this array of routes that have to be excluded from the footer navigation. Alright, cool, moving on. Now we have to decide what to do once user is going to click on this logout link. Laravel Fortify already provides us with a route which we can use in order to handle this logout request. As you can see, this route is called logout and it handles post requests. And so I'm gonna open up component which is responsible for rendering navigation items in the header, and right here, when we are rendering logout link, I'm going to do a different thing. In this case, we're about to show form, which we're gonna send by using post request, and the route that we'll have to send this form to will be logout, and the URL of this route we can get by using a route helper passing name of the current route, like so. And since this is a post request, we also have to send CSRF token, so let's add CSRF directive in here in order to have CSRF field. And down here, I'm gonna add submit button. When hovering over this link, the cursor should change on pointer and the label should say Logout. Let's also make sure that the CSRF field has been added to this form. I'm gonna inspect this element, and right here we're seeing another hidden input used to send CSRF token. And if I'll try to click this Logout link, right away I will be logged out. We're seeing that navigation items has changed, and if I'm going to access profile route directly, which is guarded, I'm gonna be redirected back to the login page. Alright, cool, let's log in again. And see what is going to happen if I, while being logged in, is gonna try to navigate to the route that is intended for guest users, such as login route. In this case, I'm redirected to the main page, but we can tweak this behavior and specify which route we have to navigate to after trying to access guest route while being authenticated. And to do so, let's open up app.php file, which is inside of Bootstrap folder. And right here within this with middleware callback, I'm gonna call method redirect users to on this middleware object. And as a parameter, we have to specify the path of that route that will have to be redirected to when trying to access guest route while being authenticated. So let's try it out. I'm going to directly access login route. And in this case, we are being redirected to the profile page, just like we have intended to. And that's about it for this lesson. Link to the source code of this project will be, as always, in the video description. As a next step, I prefer to implement functionality to send password reset link. So let's say here we're going to add a link forgot password that will redirect users to the password reset form. I'm gonna open up login page component. And right here next to password label, I'm going to add another link. But before that, let's wrap all this into another flexible container and position elements as far as possible from each other within this container. And also let's align those elements vertically in the center. And down here, I'm going to add this forgot password link. In the address, I'm going to specify the path of the password.request route. This route is already provided by Laravel Fortify, and it's intended to show the form which we can use to send password reset link. Let's also add a couple of classes to this link. I'm going to decrease font size, add underline to this link. The color of the text will be gray with a shade of 500, and when hovering over this link, the color will change on black. So now we got this new link. And if we're going to run route list command in the terminal and filter all the routes by the name forgot-password, we're gonna get a couple of routes. The first one, which uses get method, is used to show the form to send password reset link. And the second one is used to handle the request once user is going to click the link in the email to reset the password. But first of all, we'll have to specify which blade template has to be rendered once we're gonna click the forgot password link. And we are typically doing so inside of Fortify service provider class. Right here, I'm gonna duplicate one of those blocks. In this case, we need to call request password reset link view method, where we're gonna specify the path to the form that will be used to send password reset link. I'm gonna call this view forgot password. Now let's create this blade template inside auth folder, and I'm going to copy one of the existing forms, for example register form, and paste it into forgot password view. Alright, let's change the heading of this page on forgot password. Now let's go back to the terminal and run route list command once again, but this time I'm going to filter all the routes by password.email name. And we got the route that will be used to handle that form. So we'll have to use the name of this route for the action attribute right here. Then let's remove all the fields that we don't need in this form. Let's keep only email field and remove password and password confirmation fields. This link I'm going to change to back to login, and it should lead to the login page. The button to submit this form will say send reset link, And just to put the focus on the first field of this form once the page will be loaded, I'm going to use autofocus attribute on the email field right here. So now if we'll try to click on the forgot password link, sure enough, we're gonna be redirected to the new page with the form to submit password reset link. Let's try this back to login button if it works. And we are redirected back to the login page. Let's go ahead and try to submit this form, but this time I'm going to input the email of the user which does not exist in the database, and we're getting appropriate validation error. By default, Laravel uses log driver to submit mails, which means that all mails sent by our application will end up into laravel.log file. And the variable responsible for specifying which mail driver to use is called mail_mailer. As you can see, by default, it contains value of log. We can open up this file, laravel.log. I'm going to remove all the content from here. And now, if we'll enter proper email of the user that exists in our database and submit this form, we'll not see any errors. But if we'll take a look inside of laravel.log file once again, we can see the submitted mail. And here is the reset link that users can use to reset their passwords. But of course, we have to indicate somehow the fact of the successful submission of this form. And to do that, we can use session variable called status, because once this form gets submitted successfully, Laravel creates special status variable in the current user session, and we can check if this session variable exists by using session directive. In this case, we're going to show the message on the page, which we can grab from the special value variable, which is available within this session directive block. Let's make the font of this message bolder, decrease the font size. The color of this text will be valid with a shade of 600. And let's also center this message on the page. And let's try to submit this form once again by using the valid email of the user that exists in the database. And there we go, we're seeing that the form has been successfully submitted. And the message that we have just sent ends up in the laravel.log file with a link to reset the password. And that's about it for this lesson. Let's continue working on the password reset functionality in the next one. In the previous lesson, we were sending password reset link and receiving it in the laravel.log file, because by default, during local development, Laravel uses log driver for sending mails. And all mails that we're gonna send from our application will end up in laravel.log file. But we can make this process a little more convenient for us during development by using third-party services such as Mailtrap. It provides us with testing sandbox where we will be receiving our mails. So after creating an account in here, let's open up Sandboxes section and create new sandbox. I'm gonna call it Laravel Watch. Then if we'll open up settings of this sandbox, scroll down to the bottom of the page. In here, let's choose Laravel 9+, and we'll be presented with all environment variables that we'll have to paste into our file with environment variables. And this way, current Mailtrap sandbox will be integrated into our application. So I'm gonna open up my environment variable file.env. In here, let's find all environment variables that are responsible for sending mails that start with mail prefix, and I'm going to replace some of these variables with those that I have just copied from Mailtrap service. Let's just go back to Mailtrap once again and copy password separately by clicking on this label. Once password will be copied, we can use it for mail password environment variable in here. And that's actually all that we need to do to start receiving mails into this Mailtrap sandbox. Let's try it out. I'm going to send password reset link by using this form. And after successful submission, if we'll check out our sandbox on Mailtrap, sure enough, we're going to see one new mail that we have just sent with password reset link. We can click either on this button or copy reset link at the bottom, open it up in the browser, and for now we're going to see such error that we'll be fixing in the next lesson. Currently, when clicking reset password link from the email, we're getting the following error. And that is because we firstly have to define blade template that has to be shown when we are clicking this link. And also we have to let Laravel Fortify know about this template. Let's do so. Inside of Fortify service provider class, I'm going to copy this chunk of code. In this case, we'll have to call reset password view. This way, we are defining which blade template has to be shown when user will click password reset link in the email. We will call this new blade template reset password. From within this template, we're also going to reference request object. So I'm going to add this request object and pass it down to this view. And let's also specify this parameter in here in order for Laravel to pass this object into this callback. This is so-called dependency injection mechanism. Now I'm going to create this new reset password blade template and copy the content of register page and paste it into reset password view, since registration and password reset forms are pretty similar in our case. Laravel Fortify provides us with a route that will be used to handle password reset form submission. This route is called password.update. So let's specify this route name into the action attribute of the reset password form. At the same time, let's also update the heading of this page on reset password. Use proper route name to handle form submission. And now I'm going to remove name field and leave the rest of fields, since we're gonna need email, password, and password confirmation fields to handle reset password request. We also don't need to have this link in here. I'm gonna remove it and handle the label of the submit button. In this case, it will say reset. And in order to shift this button to the right side, I'm going to use justify end class on this div wrapper that is going to apply justify content CSS property with a value of flex end. And now if we'll follow that link from the reset password email, we'll end up with such page with reset password form that we have just created. And by the way, we can also pre-fill an email field, since we know which user has requested this password reset based on the token that exists in this URL. And that is why we made this request object available for this reset password blade template, because now we're going to reference this request object to fetch the email of the current user that has requested password reset link. So we are pre-filling this email field with email of the current user, and this field doesn't have to be editable, so I'm going to add read-only attribute that is going to disallow any edits of this field. But what is actually going to happen if we'll try to reset the password and submit this form? We're not seeing any signs of failures or success. We also have to pass special reset token along with this form that exists in that password reset link, and currently you can also see this token in the URL. So if we'll add another error directive in here right under email error directive and check if there are any errors related to token field. Sure enough, after successful submission, we're going to see the following error that the token field is required. That is because we are currently not sending this token along with this form. And we know to which user this token belongs to, because all password resets token are saved into password reset tokens table. Here we can see the token itself as well as an email to which this token is associated with. So it's absolutely necessary to send this token with this form. I'm going to add another hidden input field into this form and reference token field on the request object. This is the field that contains current password reset token. And also it's important to name this field token. Alright, and before sending this form once again, let's verify that hidden input field has actually been added to this form. As you can see, this field exists. And now if I'm going to send this form, let's see what is going to happen. Well, first of all, we have been redirected to the login page, but there are no messages. And after successfully resetting password, Laravel stores the message under status key of the current user session, so we can copy this session directive from another view and paste it onto the login page. In here we're also checking if status session variable exists. We're going to show it on the page. And now let's go over all this flow of resetting password once again. Firstly, I'm going to submit the email with password reset link, which will end up into my Mailtrap account. From here, I'm going to click reset password button and will end up on the reset password form. And after submitting this form with a new password, we have been redirected to the login page, and this time we're seeing status message saying that our password has been reset. And of course, now we have to log in by using our new password, and it will be redirected to the profile page. That means that our password has been successfully updated. And by the way, all those status messages can be customized. We just have to publish lang folder into our application that we can do by running PHP artisan lang column publish. And we can see that the new folder with the name of lang has been added to our project with several files that contain different messages. Let's try to modify some of those messages. For example, message under the key is sent. And this message gets shown after successfully submitting password reset link. Let's try it out. I'm going to send this form. And we are seeing the updated message with the text that we have just specified in one of the lengths files. Alright, now let's proceed with resetting the password. And we can even customize the logic to reset password, since this form is handled by one of the actions that have been published to our application. And the action responsible for resetting the password is called reset user password. So just to prove it to you that this action gets fired when we submit password reset form, I'm gonna add dyn dump statement in here. And after doing so and submitting password reset form, we're expecting to see that dd statement resetting password. So there you go, that action gets fired. Now I'm gonna revert this change and reset the password once again. I'm gonna use updated password to log in. We have been redirected to the profile page, and that means that we are successfully authenticated and our password has been reset. The link to the source code of this project will be in the video description. A very common scenario is when user needs to verify their email address before they can access certain parts of our application. So now we're going to implement this functionality that the users will be required to verify their email address after registration. Laravel Fortify already provides us with such functionality, and all we have to do to enable it is to open up fortify.php file and uncomment this line that says email verification. Next one, we'll have to implement an interface called must verify email by our user eloquent model. I'm gonna add this implementation right here. On the next step, let's specify which blade template is going to contain the message that will say to the user that he needs to verify his email address before accessing certain parts of our application. So to do it, I'm going to call verify email view method on the Fortify class, and right here let's specify the template that will contain the message to verify email. I'm gonna call it verify email. And now let's create this view. I'm gonna put it inside of auth folder, just like all other views related to authentication and registration. And now let's copy over the whole content of the register view, paste it into verify email. Right here, let's change the heading of this template on verify email. In this view, we actually don't need any form inputs. All we have to do is just put a couple of buttons. I'm going to add button to Logout. Into this form, let's not forget and also include CSRF token in here. Change button label on Logout. I'm also going to apply proper CSS classes to this button and take it from another view, paste it onto this button. And now we're gonna create another button in here that will be responsible for sending another verification email to the user. Laravel Fortify already registers a route that is responsible for handling this request to submit another email verification link, and this route is called verification.send. I'm going to change these CSS classes to make this button look different from Logout button. And the label will say resend verification email. Let's put some text onto this page that will say that email verification link has been sent to the user. And if the user is going to request another email verification link, in case he has lost the previous one, we're going to use session directive and check if status variable exists. We're going to display another message that will say a new email verification link has been emailed to you, and that will happen when the user will manually click on send verification email button to submit another email verification link. Alright, now we're going to make this profile route inaccessible for users who haven't yet verified their email addresses. And to do it, we'll need to add another middleware to this profile route that is called verified. I'm gonna put this middleware name right next to the Oz middleware. And as I already said before, verification.send route is responsible for handling the request to send another email verification link. We can open up terminal and filter all the routes by verification name. Here we can see a couple of routes. The first one with the name verification.send is responsible for handling request to submit new verification link. And now if we're going to refresh profile page, we will end up on this view. This is our verify email blade template that says that we have to verify our email address first before accessing profile route. And even if we will try to access profile page directly, we're still going to be redirected to this view. So now I'm going to click resend verification email button, and we're supposed to receive an email with verification link. Let's open up our sandbox. In here we can see our new email, which contains the link to verify email. And now in the database, if we'll take a look inside of users table, there is a column called email verified yet, which will contain the date when the user has verified his email address. So now that this column is filled, that means that our email is verified. So now let's remove this user from the database and register the new one. I'm going to quickly fill in this registration form, and after pressing the register button, we will end up on the email verification view right away. So the profile page is not yet accessible. Let's open up our sandbox. Here we can see the new email which contains email verification link. And before verifying our email, let's open up database and make sure that email verified at column is empty for now. And the moment I'm going to click this link to verify email, sure enough, this column will be filled with email verification date. And if I will manually remove this date from this column, our email will not be verified anymore, and that is why we're seeing this email verification view in the browser again. I will do another quick improvement to this page, particularly to the Logout button, because when hovering over this button, the cursor doesn't change its look. So I'm going to add cursor pointer class to this button in order for cursor to change its look when hovering over Logout button. Now let's talk about how we can modify certain parts of verification email. And to change some things inside this email, let's open up App Service Provider and write the following. I'm going to call toMail method on the verify email class. This method takes the callback with a couple of params, and this callback has to return an object of mail message type. And we can call a couple of methods on this class in order to modify some parts of verification email. For example, by using subject method, we can override subject of the email. By using line method, we can modify the text of this email. And finally, by using action method, we can modify the label of the verification button. This method also accepts URL as a second param, so let's add it in here. So I have added exclamation mark to the verification button, and now let's see if these changes will take effect. I'm going to resend email verification link, open up Sandbox, and as you can see now, email verification button contains exclamation mark. Alright, let's press this button to verify our email and make sure that email verification date has been saved into the database. And that's about it for the email verification functionality. At the end, I'm going to remove this statement for modification verification email. And let's finish this lesson. Link to the source code of this project will be, as always, in the video description. We can explicitly specify which from address will be used for all mails sent from our application. I'm talking about this from attribute, and to do so, let's open up mail.php configuration file. Right here there are a couple of environment variables used for such purpose: mail from address, which is used to specify from address, as well as mail from name, which we can use to specify the name while sending mail. And now let's open up .env configuration file and override some of these variables to see if those changes will take effect next time we're going to send an email. Mail from name variable uses value of another environment variable called appname, so let's temporarily modify this value. And these changes should take effect right away, and next time we're going to send an email from our application, let's verify that in Sandbox there are new values used for from attribute as well as for name attribute. And sure enough, there is new from address used in here that we have specified in our configuration file, as well as new name watch too. Now let's talk a little bit about password reset tokens that are saved inside of password reset tokens table. Anytime user wants to reset his token, new password reset token is generated for him, and the new row is added to this password reset tokens table. But the thing is that these tokens have expiration date, and there can be a situation when there will be a lot of such expired tokens stored in this table. And to avoid such cases, Laravel provides us with special artisan command that we can run, and this command is going to get rid of all expired tokens. So let's see it in action. I'm going to discard those temporary changes inside of .env file, and now let's switch over to auth.php configuration file. Find the passwords section in here, and as you can see, there are a couple of settings related to password reset tokens. For example, expire setting is responsible for specifying expiration time for reset tokens. By default, those password reset tokens are valid for 1 hour. We can also change table name where password reset tokens will be saved. And now I'm going to emulate the situation that this token will be expired by manually modifying this created at and set this day to yesterday. And now, for example, if we want to remove all expired tokens from this table, I'm going to run the following command in a terminal called auth:\clear resets. And right away we're seeing that that expired token has been removed from the database. And that is the way how we can remove expired password reset tokens from this table. And before wrapping up, I also like to add required attributes to all fields that need to be required, and browser validation will ensure that those fields has to be filled in. So I'm gonna go over all the forms that we have created related to registration and authentication, and where necessary I'm going to add required attribute. Along with that, I'm also going to ensure that the first field from the form will always receive focus when we're gonna navigate to a particular page with the form by using autofocus attribute. There are a couple more places left where we can use required and autofocus attributes. Let's quickly add those. And at this point, we have successfully implemented registration and authentication functionality, as well as password reset and email verification functionality. Link to the source code of this project will be in the video description. Let's take a look at the example of implementing common tasks such as updating profile information, updating password, confirming password, as well as deleting accounts. And for all these features, we're going to use Laravel Fortify package. So we'll start with adding a couple of fields to update username as well as email in here. So I'm going to switch over to the template which corresponds to the login page, since this page already has most of the markup that we are going to need for profile page. I'm going to copy this whole markup and replace existing markup inside the profile.blade.php file with a new one. Next, let's update this page heading on profile. Then down here, we're going to remove this additional link. Keep only the button to submit this form. We don't need these two classes, let's remove those. The button to submit this form will say save. We also don't need remember me checkbox. I'm gonna remove it. And instead of using password field in this form, we will have to add name field. So I'm gonna remove password field, open up register view, copy the name field from here and paste it right before an email field on the profile page. And also to shift save button to the very right of its parent container, I'm going to use justify end class instead of justify between. And now let's check out what we got in the browser. We got such form with couple of fields, name and email, and it will be enough to update profile information. Laravel Fortify already provides us with a route that we can use to handle this form submission. Let's open up terminal and filter all the routes by the profile name. We got two routes. We need second one in this case with the name user profile information.update. So I'm going to specify this route name as a handler for this profile form. And one more thing, this endpoint expects us to use put HTTP method, and to specify this method, we're going to use method blade directive and specify which method we want to use, in this case, method put. So if we'll take a look in the browser, which markup has been generated by using method blade directive, we're going to see this input of type hidden with the name method. This way we are telling Laravel that this form has to be handled by the route which uses put method. Alright, cool. Now let's take a look at the action which will handle this route submission. And this action is called update user profile information, which is located inside of actions folder. Right here, as you can see, the first step is the validation. We have to pass name and email fields that will be eventually validated. And if validation is passed, we have another if where we are checking if email was updated. And at the same time, if user element model implements must verify email interface, in this case, we're going to submit email verification link to the user mail. Otherwise, we will just update username and save updated user model to the database. Alright, let's also take the implementation of the update verified user method. Right here, we're basically doing the same thing, which is updating some of the user attributes, including email verified at. In this case, we have to reset this attribute. And besides that, we are firing this call send email verification notification, which is responsible for sending new email verification link to the user. And just to be able to test this backend validation, I'm going to remove required attributes from these fields, as well as make the email field simple text input to bypass browser validation. So now I'll switch over to the browser and we'll submit this form while having all the fields empty. Looks like nothing has happened, but in fact, if we'll take a look inside the update user profile information action, here we're saying that this validation statement also has validate with back method call, where we specify particular back where all validation errors are gathered. This validation bags is another feature of Laravel, and they are mainly used to categorize validation errors. For example, if we're going to have more than one form on the same page, then we can put validation errors that belong to particular forms into its own bags. And so in order to get validation error from the particular bag, we also have to specify it as a second argument. When using this error directive, I'm going to use update profile information error bag name in here, as well as right here. And now if I'll submit this form once again, sure enough, I'm going to see validation errors under each input field. Alright, let's get back those required attributes and put those on each field. And just to have those fields filled in with current user data, I'm going to reference user method on the object returned by auth function. This way we're getting the model of the authenticated user, and we can fetch current username by referencing name field like so. And then I'm going to take this whole expression and reference it right here, but in this case we need to read user email. So this way we have specified which default values have to be used in those input fields if the user hasn't entered anything yet. So let's finally try to update user information. I'm going to specify a different name and submit this form. We're seeing some status message in here, and also in the database, after I refresh the view, we're seeing that the name has been updated. So now, just to have more readable message instead of this key, I'm going to go back to the editor, and instead of using session directive right here, let's use basic if directive and check if status session variable exists and equals to profile information updated. We're going to show more readable message to the user saying that your profile information has been updated. And if this time we're going to update profile information, sure enough, we'll see our updated message, your profile has been updated. But if besides updating username, we're also going to update user email, in this case, we're about to get new email verification link inside user sandbox. And just because currently this profile page is protected by verified middleware, which require users to verify their email addresses, we're seeing such page. So before accessing profile page, we are required to verify our email first. And also email verified at attribute has been reset inside the database. So let's go ahead and verify user mail. I can also click this button to send another email verification link. Let's open up Sandbox, find the latest email, and press verify address button. So everything went well. Our email has been verified, and the verification date has been saved into email verified at column of the user record, and we can access profile page again. Alright, before wrapping up, let's just update type of an email field. I will use email, and also we have to use proper error bag whenever we're using error directive in a couple more places. Right here, I'm gonna specify error bag name. And one more time in here, these error directives are used to specify proper border color for fields. Whenever there is an error, we're using a red color, otherwise we're using light gray color for field border. And that's about it. Link to source code of this lesson will be in the video description. Let's create another page which is going to allow users to update their passwords. I suggest to add a link in here that will open up this page. So now I'm going to switch over to profile blade PHP, copy the link example from another page, login blade PHP. From here, let's copy this chunk of code, which is a link, and paste it onto profile.blade.php page right here. Let's use proper classes for this div, same ones that are used on this page. I'm gonna copy these classes and paste it onto this div. And now let's rename the label of this link on update password and use proper route name, which does not exist yet, but soon we're gonna create it. Let's actually do it right now. I'll open up web.php and duplicate one of the route definitions. Use password address for the new route. the template will be called pages.password, the route name will be password, and this route will also use auth and verified middlewares, so that only logged in users will be able to access this route, and only those logged in users that are actually verified their email. And now let's create this template with the name password.blade.php. I'm going to take the register form from another template and put it onto password.blade.php page, since the form will be pretty similar. Right here I'm going to rename page heading on update password. Laravel Fortify already provides us with a route which we can use to handle this form submission to update the password, and the route that we're gonna use in this case is called userpassword.update, which uses put HTTP method. Let's use this route name right here for the action attribute, and to specify HTTP method, I'm going to use method directive and use put. Alright, so let's remove all extra fields which we don't need in this case. We will only use current password field, password, and password confirmation. I'm gonna duplicate one of those fields and call a new field current password. At the same time, let's use the same name for name and ID attributes, as well as for this error directive. We'll also put the focus on this first field when the page is loaded, and also use correct field name for error directive in both places. Now let's scroll down to the bottom and rename submit button label on save. The link will say back to profile, and the profile route is called profile. And if we'll try to open up this page in the browser, sure enough we're going to see our new form with 3 fields. Now, in order to test validation, I'm going to temporarily remove required attributes from all these fields in order to bypass browser validation. So let's submit this form while having all those fields empty. Nothing happens, but in fact we're sending the request and Laravel actually runs validation, but for now we're not using proper error bag to show those validation errors. Let's take a look at the update user password action. This is an action which is responsible for handling password update request. As you can see, we're validating current password and password fields, but putting all these validation errors into a separate bag with a name update password. And in order to show validation errors from this bag, we'll have to pass second argument to the error directive to properly show validation errors from this bag. I'm gonna do it in all those places where this error directive is used across this file. Let's do it one more time and submit this form, and as you can see we got these validation errors. Let's also test if validation error will be shown when password doesn't match password confirmation. We got different error, so it all works. Now I'm going to get back browser validation by using required attributes on these fields. So now let's test the whole flow. Let's try to update user password. First of all, I will specify wrong current password to make sure we got the validation error. And now I'm gonna specify proper password, submit this form, and there we go. The password has been updated, but there are no clues. As we usually do, let's just put some informational message on success. Let's copy the template where we are showing the message by checking session variable. Right here we're gonna check if the status session variable equals to password updated, in which case we're gonna show user password has been updated message. Just to make sure that this is really the case, I'm going to update password one more time. And this time we got our updated message. So I'm going to log out and log back in by using new password. And if authentication will be successful, that means the password has been updated. So everything worked as expected. But I'd like to pay attention to another thing, and that is for this profile route we're using verified middleware, which instructs Laravel to allow access to this route only for users who have actually verified their email. But the thing is that this profile page allows us to update email, and if user will update his email and specify invalid email, he will no longer be able to update his email to correct his mistake, since we're gonna see this verify email view instead of the profile form. And due to this, let's actually allow unverified users to see this profile form and not apply verified middleware to the profile road. I'm gonna remove this verified middleware from here, and we're going to ask for email verification only when user tries to update his password. So now I'm going to submit the email verification link. Verify email by clicking this link in the mail. And that's about it for this lesson. We have successfully added password update functionality. Link to the source code of this project will be in the video description. If we need to add an extra layer of protection to some of our pages, we can use password confirmation functionality. For example, we want to allow users to update their profiles only when they have confirmed their password. And now we're going to implement such functionality. First of all, I'm gonna open up Fortify Service Provider, and right here we'll add another code block and call confirm password view method. This way we're specifying blade template that Laravel Fortify has to return to show password confirmation form. So now let's create this view confirm password, and I'm gonna take register form from register.blade.php, paste it onto confirm password page. The first thing that we'll do in here will be renaming this heading on confirm password. Laravel Fortify already has a set of routes that are related to password confirmation functionality, so we can use one of these routes for handling password confirmation request. I'm going to specify proper route name right here as a handler for this form. In order to update the password, we only have to request user for his current password, so I'm gonna remove all extra fields in this form and keep only one password field. We also don't need this link, let's remove it and rename the label of this button which submits the form. I'll say confirm. Then let's tweak CSS classes of this wrapper, because we need this button to be shifted to the right side of the container, and to let users know that they need to confirm their password first before they can proceed doing another action. I'm going to add some informational message in here saying that this is a secure area of the application, and in order to proceed, please confirm your password before continuing. Next, we also had to assign particular middleware to those routes that will require password confirmations. This middleware is called password.confirm. I'm gonna apply this middleware to the profile route. So now profile page becomes inaccessible, and when we try to open up this page, we're going to see such form to confirm password. Before continuing, I'm going to add autofocus attribute to the first field of this form in order for this field to receive the focus on a page load. Now I'm gonna type in correct password of the current user, click confirm, and there we go. We have ended up on the profile page, which means the password has been successfully confirmed. And when we confirm password, this password confirmation is valid for some time. And the fact that the user has confirmed his password is saved in the current user session. And we will not be asked for password confirmation for some time. And we can decide what time our password confirmation has to be valid for. For that, let's open up auth.php and find an option called password timeout. In this option, we can specify amount of seconds the password confirmation will be valid. By default, the password confirmation is valid for 3 hours. And there is also another thing that I like to change for now, and that is after successful login, we are redirected to the profile page, and right away the user is asked to confirm his password, since this profile page has middleware which requires users to confirm passwords. And to avoid this, I would like to redirect users to the root page instead. So let's open up fortify.php configuration file, and right here we can tweak the home option where we can specify the URL of the page where users have to be redirected to after successful login. I'm going to use root URL, and now let's try it out. Let's log in again. This time we're about to be redirected to the root page. As you can see, it worked, and when I'm gonna open up profile page, right away I'm asked for password confirmation. After successful confirmation, this confirmation will be valid for 3 hours, as long as the user stays logged in. That's about it for password confirmation functionality. Link to the source code of this project will be in the video description. How about adding functionality to remove accounts? So right here, I prefer to add another button that will lead to the page to remove account. So let's open up profile.blade.php component, scroll down to the update password button, and next to this button, I will add another button. But before, let's wrap both of these buttons within another div with flex and gap2 classes, since we need some space in between these two buttons. Now I'm going to duplicate update password button. Let's change the route of this button, which will be called delete account.show, which does not exist yet. Let's also rename this label to delete account. We are going to make this button red with a shade of 100, and when hovering over this button, the color will change to red with a shade of 200. We'll also change text color to red 700. And for now in the browser we're seeing the following error. That is because we still haven't defined route with the name delete account.show. So let's switch over to web.php, duplicate one of the existing routes, and use proper settings for this route. The address will be delete account, the blade template will be called pages.deleteAccount, and the name will be deleteaccount.show. Let's also make sure that this route will be only accessible to people who have verified their email address, as well as confirmed their password. And what we're going to do next is we will create delete account blade template. And now I'm going to copy the whole template of the login page, paste it onto delete account page. Right here, let's rename the heading to delete account. And now I'm going to get rid of all extra elements that we will not need on this page, such as this session block. We don't need it in here. Let's also remove all the input fields, since this form is not going to have any inputs. There is no need for this remember me checkbox as well, so let's remove it and change the href attribute for this button. Let's use profile page, and the label will be cancel. So once we'll click on this cancel button, we'll be redirected back to the profile page. And this button will be used for account deletion. So I'm going to change color of this button to red with a shade of 600. And when hovering over this button, the color will become red with a shade of 700. So finally, it's time to see the result in the browser and check how our new page looks like. There we go. Now I'm going to add the message in here saying that once you will remove your account, all data associated with this account will also be removed. Write down the delete account heading. Let's add the following markup. Here will be a div, inside of which I'm going to add another div with a class of flex shrink 0. We're going to add an icon into this div, and flex shrink 0 class will prevent this icon from shrinking when resizing browser window. So this block is going to contain a warning, and I'm going to make it red with a shade of 50. Let's also add a border of the red color and round corners. Let's also add some paddings from all sides, let's say 4 units. And just to have some space in between all children, inside of this div, I will apply gap3 class. Next, let's add the warning message right here. I will use heading of the second level with the following text. This action cannot be undone. We will decrease font size, make it bolder, and the text will be red with a shade of 800. Right down here, we're going to provide a little more explanation, saying that once you delete your account, all of your data will be permanently removed. To add some spacing from the top, I will apply empty2 class, decrease font size, and the color of the text will be red with a shade of 700. Alright, and now if we'll check it out in the browser, we're going to see such warning message. Looks good. Now let's also add an icon to the left side of this text. We use icons from the HeroIcons website, so I'm going to search for another icon with the name exclamation triangle and copy its SVG code. As you may remember, we already have a separate component which represents icons called icon, so let's utilize this component right here. I'm going to pass exclamation triangle name for this icon, and based on this name, icon component will decide which SVG markup to render for the particular icon. Let's open up icon component. Right here you can see a bunch of conditional blocks, and based on the icon name, we're deciding which SVG to render. So at the end of this chain, I'm going to add another else if block and check if the name of the icon passed from outside equals to exclamation triangle. We're going to render the markup of the exclamation mark that we have just copied from the HeroIcons website. And also, just to be able to pass additional attributes from outside within this component and apply those attributes to this SVG element, I'm going to use attributes variable, just like we have done with all other SVG elements in this component. Now let's switch back to delete account component and pass size 6 class to assign some height and width to this icon. And there we go, here is our icon. I'm also going to change the color of this icon. Let's say we'll use text red 800. And that's about it. We have finished the first part of account deletion functionality, where we have shown the form to remove the account. In the next lesson, we're going to write the logic which is going to handle account deletion. We will implement a separate route which will be a handler for this form. Link to the source code of this project will be in the video description. We'll continue working on account deletion functionality. So now I'm going to create new route as well as new controller that is going to handle the request to delete an account. Let's switch over to the terminal and run make controller. Here we'll specify the name for the new controller. I will call it delete account, and I'll make this controller invocable, which means that it's going to have only one action, which will be represented by the invoke magic method. If we'll open up newly generated controller delete account, in here we will see only one action, method invoke. So now I'm gonna go into delete account template and specify the new route which will be used as a handler for the account deletion form. Let's use the following name for this route, delete account.destroy. And just because we're going to use delete HTTP method while sending this form, let's use method directive and specify the delete method name, like so. Now we'll have to create new route, which will use delete method, and for that, let's duplicate one of the existing routes, and right here I'll specify delete method name. The address of this route will be the same as the previous one, and just because we're using invocable controller to handle this route, we're going to specify only controller name without explicitly specifying method name. I'm gonna use delete account.destroy as a name, and we're going to assign only one middleware for this route which will be verified, which means that only users who have verified their email address will be able to delete their accounts. Alright, cool, and now the most important thing will be to write the logic to delete user's account after they will click this delete button. So for now, I'm going to redirect users to the register page after they will remove their account. In this case, we're specifying that we want to be redirected to the route with the name register, and along with that, we're also going to save the message into session variable under the status key, saying that your account has been successfully deleted. And in order to show this session variable in the view, I'm gonna copy this session block and paste it onto a register page. And that message that we have previously saved into the session before redirecting users to the register page will be shown in here. Alright, but if we're going to try and delete user's account, instead of being redirected to the register page, we are redirected to their profile page. And the reason to that is that the register page uses middleware which will redirect all authenticated user away, because register route is only available for non-authenticated users, just like login route. And so to make this redirection work as intended, firstly we have to log the current user out, and we can do so by using auth class and calling Logout method, like so, and this way the current user will be logged out, and right after that will be redirected to the register page. And this time, as you can see, if I'm gonna press delete button, sure enough, will be redirected to the register page. And besides that, we'll also see our message that we have previously saved into the user session. But of course, we have just logged the user out and redirected him to the register page without deleting his account. So right now, I'm going to log back in, and we're going to write the logic to delete user account. Let's open up delete account controller, and here I'm going to get the currently authenticated user by calling method user on the auth class. This will give us the eloquent model of the authenticated user, and we can use method delete to delete this current user. This way, user record will be permanently removed from the users table in the database. Then we're logging user out on the next line. And normally when user logs out, we usually regenerate current user session, meaning that we are removing all user session data, and also we are regenerating user's CSRF token by calling the regenerate token method. Both of these methods, invalidate as well as regenerate token, we have called on the current user's session object that we have received by calling method session on the current request. So as you can see in the database, there is one user record in the users table. And now if I'm gonna go ahead and try to remove user's account, after that, let's open up database and make sure that the user record is gone now. As you can see, it is. And that CSRF token has also been regenerated and stored under the cookie with the name XSRF token. Alright, now I'm gonna have to create new user by registering again. After that, let's open up profile page. This page is protected by password confirmation middleware, so we are required to confirm user password first to see this page. The delete account page is protected by email verification middleware. Let's verify email address by opening up user's inbox and clicking verify email address button. Now I prefer to add a little bit of JavaScript to this deletion account functionality and confirm that the user really wants to approve this action and that he did not click this delete button by accident. I'm going to add a little bit of JavaScript in here. By adding click handler to this button, we're doing so by using onClick attribute. And right here we can call the function confirm, which is available in browser's JavaScript. And what this will basically do is it's going to show additional alert asking the user if he really wants to delete his account. So here we're asking if the user wants to delete his account because this action cannot be undone. Let's make sure that this onClick attribute is specified in the proper place, should be used directly on top of this button tag. And the next time we're going to click this delete button, we're supposed to see such confirmation dialog. And if we'll click cancel, nothing happens. So this acts as an extra layer of protection that the user did not click that delete button by an accident. Alright, cool. I'm going to create new user account once again. Open up profile page. This page is protected by password confirmation middleware, so let's confirm our password. And now let's consider a couple of improvements that we can do to our file with routes. So right here, the first 4 routes are supposed to use auth middleware since these routes have to be available only for authenticated users. And so instead of specifying auth middleware for each route individually, we can group all these routes by using group method on the route class like this and wrap all those routes within the callback. And as the first parameter, we're specifying that to all these routes we have to apply auth middleware. So now we don't have to specify this middleware individually to each route. Let's remove these usages. Actually, let's also not ask for password confirmation when user tries to navigate to the profile page, since we already have an example of using password confirmation middleware for account deletion page. And sometimes these route definitions might get quite long, so I prefer to break down these route definitions on multiple lines, like so. Alright, let's get back to the browser, open up account deletion page. We firstly have to verify our email in order to access this page. Let's click verify email address link, and one more time remove our account. I'll click delete button, confirm my action, and there we go. We have successfully removed the account, and the user record is gone from the users table. At the very end, I'm gonna show an alternative way to apply middleware to the whole group of routes. Instead of specifying it this way, we can also call middleware method and specify the middleware that should be used for each route from this group as the first parameter into this method call. And this is finally it for the account deletion functionality. Link to the source code of this project will be, as always, in the video description.